Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to morning worship here at the West Newbury Congregational Church. Good to see you. We have a number of people who are away. Most of the choir is here, though, I'll say that. They're missing maybe one person. I'd like to welcome Corinne and Hank Eggener. They are Hank is the stepfather of Carolyn Marsh, and they're visiting from Northern Virginia. And anytime I hear Northern Virginia being a Civil War buff, I always think of the Army of Northern Virginia and Robert E. Lee. But be what it is, welcome. Glad that you're here. And they'll be staying through, going back tomorrow, I think. So, welcome. Some announcements. Now, first of all, there's a couple of, the announcements are bittersweet. One that's not so sweet is, this is Don Salier's last Sunday with us for a while. And as his schedule is every year, he'll be going back to also Virginia, I believe.
Further south, Atlanta.
Atlanta, indeed, okay.
Which may even be worse.
Well, we have really appreciated Dawn's ministry and talent with us, and we have a little token of our affection, I think.
David asked me to say a couple words of thanks to Don. I think we're so blessed, Don, to have you as part of this congregation, and doubly blessed this year because you've been with us for 2 months, which has been just so much fun. And I just think that that really is the operant word. I mean, I know you are a wonderful musician, you're a wonderful pianist and organist, and your leadership of the choir is peerless, and you bring us all into wonderful shape every week from 0 to 60 in about 45 minutes. And you also provide such wonderful insights into the music. It's not simply singing the music, but understanding, a lot of times you know the person who wrote it. I mean, and so it's wonderful to hear about music and get that spiritual insight. And, but I think I gotta confess that it is just too much fun. And that's what I really thank you for. I really enjoy coming to choir and really enjoy singing with you and actually collaborating musically with Bill and I. I've been doing some playing with Don as well, and it's just a wonderful musical summer. I just want to thank you so much for that from my perspective, but also from the perspective of the church. It's so wonderful to have you as part of this wonderful institution. So,
This is unnecessary.
well, it is, but it's no fun. So, here's a token of our appreciation. David has purchased for you just a little, very small token of thankfulness.
Thank you. Should I open it now?
No.
Thank you. Well, you know it's my joy. You know my heart is here, even though I may be far away. Thank you.
Don, excuse me, could you say a word about what your schedule and activities are going to be when you get back home?
Oh dear. I'm involved in a 2-year retreat, which meets 1 week every 3 months for 2 full years. And I'm teaching there and doing music for all of those retreat sessions. I will continue to be theologian in residence, which means I can say anything I want. At University in Atlanta. I'm involved in finishing the book that I tried to finish here, and so most of it has been written here. So it's on the Psalms. The other thing that Al and I are plotting is that when I come back, some of you know I spent almost a month in Israel and Jordan, and I have a lot of film slide that I'd like to show with you. So thanks to the IT expert in our midst, we're going to put together a show, and we'll either have it over in the hall or here or some other place, and that'll be coming up in the fall. I'll announce that at the time. And then Debbie, I will do an MC when I'm back.
Thank you.
So, depends on whether the hymn may be a substitute for the turkey supper, which means the women don't have to do so much work. But I don't know what God has in mind. Yeah, so those are some things I'll be doing. A lot of music my chamber group will be playing in Atlanta, so.
Very good.
But my heart will be good.
Thank you for sharing that. Well, we have one other notable person to honor, and we have, in a way, we celebrated Mitzi Queen's birthday a couple of weeks ago, I think. But it wasn't really her birthday. It wasn't on her birthday. It was set up on a holiday. So Wednesday, she is observing an actual birthday. And you're not supposed to tell a lady's age, but I think this is a little special. Do I have your permission, Mitzi?
Yes.
Yes. I'm frankly not at joys and concerns yet, but I've got to include myself. I am not doing it all well, adjusting to the early 80s. And I don't know how much longer I can keep going. Mitzi, I think it's Wednesday, will turn 92. So,
90 also.
I'm sorry, 90, that's right. Yeah, I'm giving you 2 more years. We'll turn 90, and we want to acknowledge that. And we have a little something for you.
And may I say something too?
Certainly may.
I'm being very careful walking through these instruments. Mitzi, in the last several months, you've confided in me that you were a little sad, that you feel like you're slowing down and you're not contributing at the same pace that you used to. And I want to tell you, we're all in that boat. And when I think about my contributions, I cannot compare myself to Mitzi. I have to compare myself to a regular mortal. And so it's an adjustment, I know, but we've all got there.
There's a gift in there, Mitzi, and I hope it will let you host some of the friends that you often have lunch with after church. And I hope you enjoy being able to do that. But we really want to honor you. You're a treasured member of this community and a role model for us younger people who aren't feeling so young yet. So happy birthday.
So let us sing to her.
Sure.
Ready?
Very good. We've been blessed to have you, and we'll continue to be blessed for quite a while longer, I hope. This afternoon, 4 o'clock, I believe, the Hydrangea Walk at Chris Wilson's. I think you all know where that is. It's where all of such events are, and that's 4 o'clock, the Hydrangea Walk this afternoon. Speaking of birthdays, I gave Mitzi a couple of extra years. They really belong to B. Putnam. B will turn 92 on Friday. And it's long enough that when I saw her this week, we had a good visit, and she was not sure how old she was, and she didn't think she was as old as 90. So I got out my pen and I said, "What year were you born?" And she said, 1930. So we subtracted 1930 from 2022, and I said, "B, you're 92. I am. So there's a card back there, and if you haven't had a chance to send a card of greetings to B, please take advantage of that. Again, she will turn 92 on Friday. There was an announcement last week about the annual Scottish Festival. It's at Tweeche's Polo Field. That's next Saturday. I don't have the times, but there's games, music, and food. Those are the announcements I have. Do you have some additional ones? Yes.
Next Sunday, there's going to be a free concert in the mall, or the park area in North Haverhill. And it'll involve people that have been involved in a lot of the projects of different services here. Dave Ellison's quintet, so Dave Ellis will be playing, David Hines will be playing, and I'll be playing. It's a free concert at 3 o'clock in North Haverhill.
Is it North Haverhill or Haverhill Corner?
Well, I'm not sure. Where is that open green where they have the gazebo?
Yes, that's downtown Haverhill Corner.
Okay, yeah, Haverhill.
Yes, yeah.
Because people, you know, it's a free concert and a lot of people like to come and just sit and have a picnic and whatever. So it'll be 3 to 4 o'clock concert. And
3 to 4.
Really enjoy it.
And that's next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So today there's a concert on the Common at Newbury. Patrick Ross is actually the first performer playing. It's at 1, right?
Yes, 1 to 6.
So it's $10 per person, you know, for concert. But he's a wonderful performer. Highly recommended.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, also today is the Historical Society is combining with South Reigate for a program, and this is up in South Reigate, the church, of 400 miles, I think this is, down the Connecticut River with a talk about different events and things that, along the Connecticut River.
And what time is that?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
There are other cards, other birthday cards down back, and there's a thinking of you for Brian Emerson, except I don't know his address. So I haven't addressed enough Brian Emerson, but if somebody knows his home address, please write it in.
I'll see that
Okay,
it gets
thank
put
you.
in. Very good. Thank you. Now, any other announcements? Well, that brings us to this morning's humor. And I really hope you pay, I won't say reverent attention, but careful attention. I think we men get a bad rap for not being attentive enough to our wives and being insensitive, let's say. So I want to counteract some of that and stand up for the gentleman here. And so I have a little story about a man whose wife was missing, and he contacted the police. And this shows a very caring mentality, more or less. So the husband says to the police officer, "My wife is missing. She went shopping yesterday, and she's not come home." And the officer takes out his pad, pencil, and her age. "Well, I'm not sure. Somewhere between 50 and 60. We don't do birthdays." "Her height?" "Not sure of that either. Say a little over 5 feet tall." "Her weight?" I don't know, not slim, but not really fat either. Color of her eyes, sort of brown, I think. I never really looked that closely. Color of her hair, changed a couple of times a year. Maybe dark brown now, I can't quite remember. What was she wearing? Could have been pants or maybe a skirt or shorts. Please now, let's not mock this poor man. What kind of car did she go in? She went in my truck. What kind of truck was it? A 2017 model, manufactured September 16th, pearl white Ram, limited 4x4 with a 6.4 Hemi V8 engine with a Ram box bar and fridge option. LED lighting, backup and front camera, moose-hide leather, heated and cooled seats, climate-controlled air conditioning. It has custom retracting running boards and underglow wheel well lighting. At this point, the husband starts to choke up. The officer says, "Take it easy, sir. We'll find your truck." Now, we come to today's quiz. And today's quiz, this is one from the Valley News a while back. And they are 3-word literary titles. For example, Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote Crime and Punishment. Okay, so here's the rest of them. Aldous Huxley, Brave New World. F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. Marcus Zuzak, The Book. And this one I didn't know either. The Book Thief. Jack Kerouac, On the Road. Samuel Beckett, Waiting for. Good. Somerset Maugham, Of Human Bondage. Karen Blixen, Out of Africa. Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness. Daniel Keyes, or Keyes, dependent. Flowers for Algernon. Virginia Woolf, To the Lighthouse. Richard Bach, Jonathan Livingston. Oscar Wilde, Lady Windermere's Fan. Charles Dickens, Our Mutual Friend. You can always count on the choir. It gets quiet out in front of me. Thomas Mann, Death in Venice. Again, the choir comes through. Well, again, that shows the intellectual breadth and depth of this congregation. Thank you. With our lips, let us sing one confession. With our hearts, hold to one truth alone.
God has erased our transgressions, claimed us, and called us his own.
We are the people of God, called by his name, called from the dark, and delivered from shame.
God has erased our transgressions, claimed us, and called us his own.
Our opening hymn this morning, found in the blue hymnal, number 215, When Morning Gilds the Sky. Let's join our voices in this morning's unison prayer. Search us, O God, and know our hearts today. Try us, O Savior, know our thoughts, we pray. See if there be any despair or blindness in us. Cleanse us from every ignorance and set us free. We pray as Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever. Amen. come to our time of joys and concerns, and I want to mention a joy in terms of people being with us, and we want to thank Bill Keck for his time with us for these last few weeks and contributing to our music as well. So Bill, glad to have had you. I'll point out we're going to still be here. You're more than welcome to continue on or to come where you can. But we thank you for your attendance, support, and for your music. A very serious matter regarding Judy Longtoe's nephew. Her brother John's son was involved in a very serious accident on his motorcycle. Ended up colliding with a truck. He is said to have traumatic brain injury. He is 48 years old. Aaron Waters. They are somewhat encouraged. He has opened his eyes. He's moved his legs a bit. Somebody on the staff gave him a thumbs up sign, and he responded in kind. So that is encouraging. But he's considered to still be in a kind of coma. And his father, Judy's brother John, has recently been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and they were hoping that Aaron would be of significant help for them, and that's not going to be possible. The family lives in Wethersfield, Vermont, and he currently is at the Hitchcock. Right now, just family is allowed to visit. He'll be moved to a different room this coming week. But I know Judy would appreciate our prayers for her nephew, and we'll get some information about cards in due time. Fortunately, nothing really new about Alan Fuller. He's continuing to do pretty well.
Oh, yes, there is. We tried to get him in the shower yesterday, me and him. It's never going to happen again.
There's a limit to
I don't know who
togetherness.
was more stressed out, him or me, but he's so weak, really. But he wanted to do it. I wanted to have him do it, but
His spirits are good.
most of the time, yes.
Well, we'll continue to keep Alan in our prayers.
Oh, please keep me in the prayers. This is not an easy task.
Maybe more so. Had a good visit with Brian Emerson this week. He's coming along, maybe not as fast as he'd like to, but he is making progress. He still has some tenderness where they removed the gallbladder. He goes out twice a day for walks and took a lengthy one this past week. He has been told he can work limited amount of hours from home, and then when school starts in the fall, he can go in for limited stays to work at Riverbend. So he's coming along. He continues to appreciate the cards and well wishes from this congregation, and he has said when he's able, he wants to come over and express his gratitude in person. And I said that he'd be very welcome. Janice Moore has been through the ringer, we might say. She is at Alice Peck Day. She had a hip replacement early this past week, as well as 2 substantial injections in both knees. Something happened with her medication and her blood pressure plummeted, and she ended up passing out when she would attempt to stand, and had some serious falls. They have since adjusted the medication. Her blood pressure is what it should be. She is hoping Janice said she really wasn't looking forward to having visitors quite yet, but she hopes in a couple of days to be released. She will not go back with Celinda Girardin right away because she cannot negotiate any stairs. She will go to be with a friend in Bradford, where she won't have to do stairs, and she'll be there until she's ready to return with Celinda. A real joy, we had a wedding this week. I think the first wedding I've had since I've been with you. On Wednesday, Lisa Hafner married Greg Plant, and some of you know both of them. Lisa, for quite a while, would sit by herself up front, and lately was sitting with Judy Longtoe toward the back. It was a happy occasion. There were a lot of children involved. It's a second marriage, I think, for each one, and a lot of family. And the ceremony, we didn't have a rehearsal, but it went pretty well anyway. And it was a joyous occasion. So that was a joy. So it's Mr. and Mrs. Greg Plant now. And they're away on their honeymoon this weekend. I think those are the joys and concerns I have. Yes?
Prayers for my brother Richard Burroughs, who's been put on palliative care. And he's very, very close to the end. Yes.
Okay, and he lives where?
Out on the farm. He's out on the farm. Out in Newbury Center.
Newbury Center.
Yeah. He's this week.
All right. Thank you. We'll keep him in our prayers. Other joys or concerns? Yes?
I have a joy. My puppy's brain is finally taking hold. Not all the time, but there are glimmers of sanity. Like when he sees somebody he knows, like Chris or Julia, he just like loses it. But for strangers, he can approach and sit and get petted. This is so cute.
How old is he now?
He turned 8 months last week.
Very good. Congratulations. Other joys or concerns? Yes.
Well, I have a joy just that Jenny grew up in this church, so she's having in Rattleboro, they're showing her documentary on, it's called Passion During a Pandemic, and it's been, Norma Jacobson did an extensive film of the opera program that Jenny was working with, and Filippo of the Dartmouth College was very involved as a resident artist, singer, and so it's won a number of competitions throughout New England as the top documentary, and they're going to be showing it at the Opera House this afternoon. They showed it yesterday afternoon, but I'm not mentioning it for people that drive out of Brattleboro, but I just mentioned it that she's really part of this congregation for years, so it's a real joy for her, for them to show that documentary, because it really shows her teaching skills and her love of opera, which is nice to introduce to the high school students.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and assure her of our joy at that honor. Other joys, yes.
Well, it's a joy to be here, sitting here, hearing, seeing, and just loving everybody. Thank you very much for this gift. I will enjoy it with my family, I suppose.
Good. Well, we are delighted that you're with us, and always delighted when you're with us. And we hope that continues for a long, long time. Thank you. Any other joys or concerns? I will add one concern about myself. And I think humility dictates that I shouldn't stand outside of the process. This past May, the end of May, I turned 81, and it's not been fun since then. I really am having trouble adjusting. I'm continuing to try to do things that I've always done, especially for the last 5 or so years, and it's leading to one injury after another, and not to mention the frustration of my wife, who keeps saying, why do you keep doing those things? So I have to learn how to cope with life and myself on the other side of 80, as some of you already have done. And right now, I'm not doing all that well with it, so I would ask for prayers for myself. Let's join together in silent prayer. Eternal Father, Mother of all of us, forgive our sins. Pardon our sometimes foolish ways. Enable us to more and more become who we need ourselves to be. Give us the ability to become genuine, true to your truth for us and for those others who need to look to us for relief, for help. Encourage us to be wise enough to truly cherish and value those you have gifted us with, to walk with us, to encourage us, to lighten unnecessary loads, to walk along our paths with a truer freedom of heart and mind. We thank you for them and for your grace. Amen. Let's join together in hymn number 508 in the blue hymnal, Love Lifted Me.
When Jesus went back to the synagogue, where there was a man who had a paralyzed hand, some people were there who wanted to accuse Jesus of doing wrong. So they watched him closely to see whether he would cure the man on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man, "Come up here to the front." Then he asked the people, "What does our law allow us to do on the Sabbath? To help or to harm? To save a man's life or to destroy it?" But they did not say a thing. Jesus was angry as he looked around them, but at the same time, he felt sorry for them because they were so stubborn and wrong. Then he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and it became well again. So the Pharisees left the synagogue and met at once with some members of Herod's party, and they made plans to kill Jesus. Some Pharisees and teachers of the law who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus. They noticed that some of his disciples were eating their food with hands that were ritually unclean. That is, they had not washed them in the way the Pharisees said people should. For the Pharisees, as well as the rest of the Jews, followed the teaching they received from their ancestors. They do not eat unless they wash their hands in the proper way. Nor do they eat anything that comes from the market unless they wash it first. And they follow many other rules which they have received, such as the proper way to wash cups, pots, copper bowls, and beds. So the Pharisees and the teachers of the law asked Jesus, "Why is it that your disciples do not follow the teaching handed down by our ancestors, but instead eat with ritually unclean hands?" Jesus answered them, "How right Isaiah was when he prophesied about you. You're hypocrites, just as he wrote. These people, says God, honor me with their words, but their heart is really far away from me. It is no use for them to worship me, because they teach man-made rules, as though they were my rules, my laws. You put aside God's command and obey the teachings of men."
Thank you, Chris. The Spirit and the Letter. It was a running battle. As Christ journeyed through Judea, the religious bigwigs would spring one ambush after another. Jesus and that day's religious leaders were deadly adversaries. What was it? What was the bone of contention, the burr under their saddles that threatened to lead the leaders of the law to lynching? Can their conflict be clearly captured in a sentence? Yes, it can. The religious leaders insisted on the letter of the law. Christ spotlighted the Spirit. They worshiped the appearance of things. Jesus served the heart of the matter. They reverenced the rules. Christ referred to the reason for the rules. Perhaps it is all summed up by 1 Samuel. The Lord does not see as mortals see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. The authorities saw Jesus as incorrigible. He healed on the Sabbath. He failed to follow the manual for ritual hand washing before eating. He treated Samaritans with respect. He spoke to women as if they were his human equals. He included outcasts as okay. They were working hard for an orderly society above all else, one in which everyone knew his place and stayed in it, and Christ was messing it all up. He was consistent, they'd give him that. He spoke and acted as if people, individual men, women, and children, really mattered in the eyes of God. Well, they knew there were rules to follow, ways in which things should be done and had to be done. And if he was going to make trouble, they had their ways to take care of that and him. The conflict between the letter and the spirit must be fought in every generation. The clash over appearance versus essence is never really once and for all one. It blew up a few years ago in Natick, Massachusetts. Natick is a big town, small city, closer to Worcester than to Boston. Jennifer Richardson and her family make their home there. Jenny was 5 years old, and her mother enrolled her in the religious education program at St. Patrick's Church, where Jenny and both of her siblings had been baptized. The church's education program would soon lead her to her first communion. However, Jenny suffers from celiac disease, which produces an intolerance for gluten, a protein found in wheat, barley, oats, and rye. If Jenny eats anything with gluten in it, her stomach swells, her hair begins to fall out, and she starts losing the muscle in her arms and legs, and she becomes immediately sick to her stomach. As a result, she cannot have cookies, pancakes, pizza, cereal, or subs. Jenny's mother has to make most of her food at home. So Mrs. Richardson arranged a meeting with the priest at St. Patrick's to explain that Jenny would be medically unable to ingest the normal wheat wafer offered during communion. She wanted to plan with the priest for the substitution of a rice-based wafer so that her daughter could participate with the other children. The priest's answer was brief and blunt. He informed Mrs. Richardson that a non-wheat wafer was absolutely impermissible, and there was nothing he could do for her. He did, however, send on her request to the cardinal, the head of the Archdiocese of Boston. The Richardsons later received the cardinal's letter in which he explained, quote, "The law of the church is extremely explicit. In keeping with the Last Supper narrative in the Gospels, the bread must be made only from wheat." Case closed? Not quite. The family went over to the local Methodist church and explained the problem. The Methodist pastor visited with the Richardsons in their home and assured them that his congregation would be glad to make sure Jenny would be included in communion with their church. The whole Methodist church was so welcoming that the Richardsons now consider that congregation to be their church home. When I was in my early teens, church attendance was far more popular than it is today. And when showing up for worship, men invariably wore jackets and ties, if not suits. Women wore dresses, hats, and a bit before my time had to be careful about when to wear white gloves and when not to. The rule was you can't wear white after Labor Day. And there really were some segments of society, hard to believe this would be in a church, where if a woman wore white gloves after Labor Day, she would be avoided and shunned by some of the other women. It's It's hard to believe, but that's what the research shows. If a woman entered the sanctuary wearing slacks, she'd have been the subject of gossip all the rest of the week. If a man showed up in blue jeans, he might have been asked to leave in some churches. Today, if only we could fill our pews with 20 or 30 more worshipers wearing shorts, slacks, or jeans. We'd be deeply grateful and delighted. Man looketh on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart. Were we really so superficial to believe that God would reject worship if the worshiper prayed and sang, minus a tie or wearing slacks? During the late 1960s and into the 70s, and perhaps beyond, I recall conflict and controversy over high school boys with long hair, sometimes shoulder length. And I had many of them in my class. And I know some of the other, this is when I taught high school in Mass, some of the other teachers were just exasperated. For some reason, it didn't seem to rile me too much. A notable case involved all-star baseball manager George Sparky Anderson, who led Cincinnati and Detroit to World Series championships. He was a great manager, and he was a stickler for rules with all of his players and his own kids. At home, Sparky's teenage son Lee wore his hair quite long. Sparky ordered Lee to cut it short. Lee refused. The two stopped speaking to each other. They did not share a word of conversation, father and son, for over a year. After his retirement, Sparky devoted most of his time to his family. Sparky and Lee had a full reconciliation. Today, Lee Anderson is a successful contractor and known as a man of real integrity. At age 52, he still wears his hair at below shoulder length. More recently, the fashion has included tattoos and nose, eyebrow, and lip rings. I do not get it. Their fashion tastes make no sense at all to me. But their character and trustworthiness can run the gamut. Their integrity is not determined by a tattoo or a nose ring, but it's very important to them. I remember when I was filling in at Oxford High for a while, there was a student who was determined to help me get a tattoo. He said, I'll go with you. I know a good place, and we can go there and you can get whatever you want. And I thanked him and declined. Suppose a future candidate for pastor of this congregation was a young woman who struck you as an ideal choice and was going to be sorely missed by her previous church. But suppose she had a large, clearly visibly tattoo on one side of her neck, and also a ring in her nose. Assuming her neckline and skirt length was perfectly proper, and she seemed to be a compassionate and effective pastoral leader, would her tattoo and ring prevent West Newbury from welcoming her as a new spiritual leader? I'll leave that question to think about. Jesus taught God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. The prophet Amos quotes God warning Israel 700 years before Christ. I hate your religious festivals. I cannot stand them. When you bring me offerings, I will not accept them. Stop your noisy songs. I do not want to listen to them. Instead, let justice flow like a stream and righteousness like a river that never goes dry. Some years later, we hear from the prophet Micah these wonderful words. What shall I bring to the Lord, the God of heaven, when I come to worship him? Shall I bring him the best calves to sacrifice to him? Will the Lord be pleased if I bring him thousands of sheep or endless streams of olive oil? Shall I offer him my firstborn son to pay for my sins? No. The Lord has told us what is good. What he requires of us is this, to do what is just, to show constant love, and to live in humble fellowship with each other and our God. Amen. This morning's closing hymn is number 684, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. Faithful Father, our weekly worship now ends, but enable us during the rest of this week to honor and obey the impulses we know we will feel toward affection and forgiveness for ourselves and those who need our care. Amen.
Thank you.